Do not let your fire go out, spark by irreplaceable spark in the hopeless swamps of the not quite, the not yet, and the not at all. Do not let the hero in your soul perish in lonely frustration for the life you deserved and have never been able to reach. The world you desire can be won. It exists. It is real. It is possible. It's yours. If you don't know, the thing to do is not to get scared, but to learn. Learn to value yourself, which means, fight for your happiness. I could die for you. But I couldn't, and wouldn't, live for you. People think that a liar gains a victory over his victim. What I've learned is that a lie is an act of self-abdication, because one surrenders one's reality to the person to whom one lies, making that person one's master, condemning oneself from then on to faking the sort of reality that person's view requires to be faked. The man who lies to the world, is the world's slave from then on. There are no white lies, there is only the blackest of destruction, and a white lie is the blackest of all. Love is blind, they say, sex is impervious to reason and mocks the power of all philosophers. But, in fact, a person's sexual choice is the result and some of their fundamental convictions. Tell me what a person finds sexually attractive and I will tell you their entire philosophy of life. Show me the person they sleep with and I will tell you their valuation of themselves. No matter what corruption they're taught about the virtue of selflessness, sex is the most profoundly selfish of all acts, an act which they cannot perform for any motive but their own enjoyment. Just try to think of performing it in a spirit of selfless charity. An act which is not possible in self-abasement, only in self-exaltation, only on the confidence of being desired and being worthy of desire. It is an act that forces them to stand naked in spirit, as well as in body, and accept their real ego as their standard of value. They will always be attracted to the person who reflects their deepest vision of themselves, the person whose surrender permits them to experience, or to fake, a sense of self-esteem. Love is our response to our highest values, and can be nothing else. To say I love you, one must know first how to say the I. A creative man is motivated by the desire to achieve, not by the desire to beat others. I swear by my life and my love of it that I will never live for the sake of another man, nor ask another man to live for mine. Why do they always teach us that it's easy and evil to do what we want and that we need discipline to restrain ourselves? It's the hardest thing in the world to do what we want. And it takes the greatest kind of courage. I mean, what we really want. The smallest minority on earth is the individual. Those who deny individual rights cannot claim to be defenders of minorities. I started my life with a single absolute, that the world was mine to shape in the image of my highest values and never to be given up to a lesser standard, no matter how long or hard the struggle. The hardest thing to explain is the glaringly evident which everybody has decided not to see. If you saw Atlas, the giant who holds the world on his shoulders, if you saw that he stood, blood running down his chest, his knees buckling, his arms trembling but still trying to hold the world aloft with the last of his strength, and the greater his effort the heavier the world bore down upon his shoulders, what would you tell him? The man who does not value himself, cannot value anything or anyone. A man's sexual choice is the result and the sum of his fundamental convictions. He will always be attracted to the woman who reflects his deepest vision of himself, the woman whose surrender permits him to experience a sense of self-esteem. The man who is proudly certain of his own value will want the highest type of woman he can find, the woman he admires, the strongest, the hardest to conquer, because only the possession of a heroine will give him the sense of an achievement. Have you felt it too? Have you seen how your best friends love everything about you except the things that count? And your most important is nothing to them, nothing, not even a sound they can recognize. If you tell a beautiful woman that she is beautiful, what have you given her? It's no more than a fact, and it has cost you nothing. But if you tell an ugly woman that she is beautiful, you offer her the great homage of corrupting the concept of beauty. To love a woman for her virtues is meaningless. She's earned it, it's a payment, not a gift. But to love her for her vices is a real gift, unearned and undeserved. To love her for her vices is to defile all virtue for her sake, and that is a real tribute of love, because you sacrifice your conscience, your reason, your integrity, and your invaluable self-esteem. Contradictions do not exist. Whenever you think that you are facing a contradiction, check your premises. You will find that one of them is wrong. To sell your soul is the easiest thing in the world. That's what everybody does every hour of his life. If I asked you to keep your soul, would you understand why that's much harder? My happiness is not the means to any end. It is the end. It is its own goal. It is its own purpose. He is free to evade reality. He is free to unfocus his mind and stumble blindly down any road he pleases, but not free to avoid the abyss he refuses to see. Devotion to the truth is the hallmark of morality. There is no greater, nobler, more heroic form of devotion than the act of a man who assumes the responsibility of thinking. Never think of pain or danger or enemies a moment longer than is necessary to fight them. The truth is not for all men but only for those who seek it. I regret nothing. There have been things I missed, but I ask no questions, because I have loved it, such as it has been, even the moments of emptiness. Even the unanswered, and that I loved it, that is the unanswered in my life. Don't fool yourself, my dear. You're much worse than the bitch. You're a saint. Which shows why saints are dangerous and undesirable. Let me give you a tip on a clue to men's characters. The man who damns money has obtained it dishonorably, the man who respects it has earned it. But you see, said Rourke quietly, I have, let's say, 60 years to live. Most of that time will be spent working. I've chosen the work I want to do. If I find no joy in it, then I'm only condemning myself to 60 years of torture. And I can find the joy only if I do my work in the best way possible to me. But the best is a matter of standards, and I set my own standards. I inherit nothing. I stand at the end of no tradition. I may, perhaps, stand at the beginning of one. She did not know the nature of her loneliness. The only words that named it were, "This is not the world I expected. You have been the one encounter in my life that can never be repeated. If it's worth doing, it's worth overdoing." Man cannot survive except through his mind. He comes on earth unarmed. His brain is his only weapon. Animals obtain food by force. Man had no claws, no fangs, no horns, no great strength of muscle. He must plant his food or hunt it. To plant, he needs a process of thought. To hunt, he needs weapons, and to make weapons, a process of thought. From this simplest necessity to the highest religious abstraction, from the will to the skyscraper, everything we are and we have comes from a single attribute of man, a function of his reasoning mind. Listen to what is being preached today. Look at everyone around us. You've wondered why they suffer, why they seek happiness and never find it. If any man stopped and asked himself whether he's ever held a truly personal desire, he'd find the answer. He'd see that all his wishes, his efforts, his dreams, his ambitions are motivated by other men. He's not really struggling even for material wealth, but for the second-hander's delusion, prestige, a stamp of approval, not his own. He can find no joy in the struggle and no joy when he has succeeded. He can't say about a single thing, "This is what I wanted because I wanted it, not because it made my neighbors gape at me." Then he wonders why he's unhappy. I love you so much that nothing can matter to me, not even you. Only my love, not your answer. Not even your indifference. A government is the most dangerous threat to man's rights. It holds a legal monopoly on the use of physical force against legally disarmed victims. Who is John Galt? I never found beauty in longing for the impossible and never found the possible to be beyond my reach. What greater wealth is there than to own your life and to spend it on growing? Every living thing must grow. It can't stand still. It must grow or perish. It's easy to run to others. It's so hard to stand on one's own record. You can fake virtue for an audience. You can't fake it in your own eyes. Your ego is your strictest judge. They run from it. They spend their lives running. It's easier to donate a few thousand to charity and think oneself noble than to base self-respect on personal standards of personal achievement. It's simple to seek substitutes for competence, such easy substitutes: love, charm, kindness, charity. But there is no substitute for competence. There's nothing as significant as a human face, nor as eloquent. We can never really know another person, except by our first glance at him. Because, in that glance, we know everything, even though we're not always wise enough to unravel the knowledge. I am, therefore I'll think. The purpose of morality is to teach you, not to suffer and die, but to enjoy yourself and live. I worship individuals for their highest possibilities as individuals, and I loathe humanity for its failure to live up to these possibilities. Integrity is the ability to stand by an idea. But why should you care what people will say? All you have to do is please yourself. Live and act within the limit of your knowledge and keep expanding it to the limit of your life. When I disagree with a rational man, I let reality be our final arbiter. If I am right, he will learn; if I am wrong, I will. One of us will win, but both will profit. There's no way to rule innocent men. The only power any government has is the power to crack down on criminals. Well, when there aren't enough criminals, one makes them. One declares so many things to be a crime that it becomes impossible for men to live without breaking laws. Run for your life from any man who tells you that money is evil. That sentence is the leper's bell of an approaching looter. I would give the greatest sunset in the world for one sight of New York's skyline, particularly when one can't see the details, just the shapes and the thought that made them. The sky over New York and the will of man made visible. What other religion do we need? And then people tell me about pilgrimages to some dank pest hole in a jungle where they go to do homage to a crumbling temple, to a leering stone monster with a pot belly, created by some leprous savage. Is it beauty and genius they want to see? Do they seek a sense of the sublime? Let them come to New York, stand on the shore of the Hudson, look and kneel. When I see the city from my window, no, I don't feel how small I am, but I feel that if a war came to threaten this, I would throw myself into space, over the city, and protect these buildings with my body. There is no such thing as a lousy job, only lousy men who don't care to do it. Learn to distinguish the difference between errors of knowledge and breaches of morality. An error of knowledge is not a moral flaw, provided you are willing to correct it. Only a mystic would judge human beings by the standard of an impossible, automatic omniscience. But a breach of morality is the conscious choice of an action you know to be evil, or a willful evasion of knowledge, a suspension of sight and of thought. That which you do not know is not a moral charge against you, but that which you refuse to know is an account of infamy growing in your soul. Make every allowance for errors of knowledge. Do not forgive or accept any break of morality. Joy is the goal of existence, and joy is not to be stumbled upon, but to be achieved, and the act of treason is to let its vision drown in the swamp of the moment's torture.